Hey team, Leo here. This is a quick training tutorial video on how to get items that are ready for billing processed properly. So let's take a look at this. We have some items that are ready for billing right now. One is this Roadworks at the top. So let's take a look at it and see what we need to do. I have Help Desk open, QuickBooks open, and over here is Vistaprint because I knew that we did something in Vistaprint. And I'm also looking at Amazon and some things in Stripe. But for this one, I just clicked on it because it says it's ready for billing and it's the oldest one in the list. Go down to what we've done here to see if there's any charges associated with it. It should really only be ready for billing if there are charges associated with it. This information was not in here. It was in the notes. But anytime we purchase anything, we need to put all of the order detail here so that we know that order needs to be put into QuickBooks. So we know that we ordered some cards from Vistaprint back on 2/9/2017 for Roadworks. And I know that because I searched over here and found an order number 10 months ago, logged into Vistaprint using our login information that's in SimpleSafe. And then went down and found that order number that Linda had mentioned, and this was the order, it looks like. So I actually put that information in here, but the nerds should be putting that information in here of the stuff they want to purchase. And when purchases are made, they should have already been entered into QuickBooks. This one probably didn't happen that way. So let's go take a look. We're going to go over to QuickBooks, and we're going to first, I'm going to check and see if it's there. If I look at expenses, and I'm going to check vendors real quick. Come on, I said real quick. She's taking her time. Vendors. Come on. And then I'm going to look and see if Vistaprint is in here. And see if we had an order back in February 2017. There it is. So this is the expense item that we have. Let's see if it's actually tied to Roadworks like it's supposed to be. It's not. Okay. So we have a little bit of a problem here because when this was entered, it was not entered properly. It should have been tied to the client based on that order. So let's do that right now. Let's do a payment method. Should have been the debit card we had on file. Reference number would be the order number here that's inside of Vistaprint. This should have been added a long time ago. So we're going to go back to QuickBooks. We're going to put that in as the reference number because you're spending money to buy something out of our checking account here using the debit card, and this is the tracking number. That's like the receipt number for the purchase. Now, this should have been billable to, and it's 25% markups correct, and the client should have been Roadworks. So that would be good. This would be good. We don't need to, this is actually kind of useless information. We probably want to put something in here of like business cards for, and this should be okay, business cards for, there's a few problems with this one. Roadworks, we can just put that in. Business cards for the two people, Billy Anderson and Travis Brown. Let's put that in as the expense. The reason I say this is what the member will see whenever it pops up on their invoice. This should have been cost of goods sold because we're reselling this to a member, and the memo detail down here, we can leave that. That's just what's transferred from the bank whenever we downloaded these transactions. So let's save that. Now that's recorded as an expense, but we still have to invoice the member for that. So that's the way we would have entered an expense whenever we purchased this thing. Now let's go back to here and we say this was for Roadworks, and what was the SR number? Because we know we're going to need that when we create the invoice. So now let's create a new invoice. I just hit the plus sign up here and created an invoice. And the client is Roadworks. And it should pop up an email. It knows that we have that expense that we just added, which is pretty cool. It should have a billing address. I don't know why we don't have billing addresses. This should be due on receipt. The invoice date, it's today, but it shouldn't be. This or number there. Let's see what we got over here for Roadworks. I guess that's correct. They haven't moved yet, right? So 37914. So in here we should have where they're located. And due on receipt. And now if you add this item, boom, it puts it in. Your client won't see this portion because it's going to add that into that total for them. All they're going to see is a total. We don't need to tax that because we paid taxes on it, I believe, when we ordered it. Let's take a look. Yes, we paid sales tax on it, so we don't need to tax that to them. Let's go back over here and we'll uncheck that. But the IRS or the state likes us to tax our markup because they suck tremendously and want us to give them money constantly. So this is the invoice. Now I'm not even sure if Michelle is the right one for this, to where this would go. So let's see. Maybe we just send it to Barry. Let's send it to Beth, because Beth's the one I think that would pay the bills for this anyway. So what is Beth's? Does it show us anywhere here? Because we emailed Beth. I guess we'll put it to Beth here. This should be at least, and we probably need to update this information in here because this isn't correct. Then we could put Barry in here on these orders. What is Barry's email address? So if we put Barry in there too, copied on it, boom. Okay, so now I've got Beth as who this invoice is going to. We don't want to allow them to pay by cards, bank transfer. They'll probably want us just to charge their card on file for it. So that's what we'll end up doing. But we give them the option of paying by a bank transfer if they want to. Now, this one's ready to go. Here's the expense, all of this jazz, and it's we don't really care about any of this because it was something that was for resale to a member. We just purchased it and held on to it for a second and then charged them, and then we make $682 on that markup. So let's save and send. And right here we'll say your, I don't know why it doesn't say invoice, from Neighborhood Nerds, let's do Dear Beth. Thanks for allowing us to make technology easier for you. Sorry for the delay on getting this out. We will bill your card on file for these charges unless you want to pay by check using the online option. Something like that. It says some nice stuff down here. Tells them how much we love them. Check this to make sure. Oh, and someone has changed something so that it's showing the markup now. All right, guys, I figured out what was wrong. You can't break apart. Like what I did is I told it to make only the markup taxable and not the original purchase. So QuickBooks is kind of screwed like that, where if you can't break those two apart. So they both have to be taxable, which means we're double taxing the end user. Since we paid sales and use tax for the purchase of the cards, we have to tax them again according to QuickBooks. So we're going to collect $3.15 instead of 63 cents and have to send that $3.15 to the state of Tennessee. So the government is making more, like twice as much money off of these purchases, which is great. You know, the government and QuickBooks, they're probably in bed together, so awesome. Anyway, so you know, we're sending this to Barry. You know, thanks for allowing us to make this technology easier for you. This is the information. It's going to go to Beth and a carbon copy to Barry. I'm going to put in here again, sorry for the delay on this one. We had a little trouble finding the original purchase and just print. You can pay via online with check via online option, or we will bill your card on file. And send and close. So that sent that. Something we need to do here is do something so that we get this back, that it was entered, you know, what the information was. That won't work. We've got to get something back over in QuickBooks, so that, I mean, in M Help Desk, so that when someone asks about this, the nerds can just say, this was the invoice and this was why, and all of that stuff. Because apparently, you know, some of the members call in and say, why was I invoiced for this? So I'm trying to think of the best way to do that. I guess we could just, like, you know, put a PDF version of this on the actual, on the each SR whenever we invoice them. So I'm just going to download a copy of this. Invoice, I forget what the invoice number was now. Let's see. Invoice 173576. And I'll put that in downloads just so I can grab it down here. And okay, I got that. Then I'm going to go back over here and I'm going to add that to this. So add a file, select, and drag this thing in there. So there's their invoice. And I'm sure that it'll be a little quicker when we're doing these things, but right now it's like a little painful to move around in these systems. It's kind of like that all the time, though, really. Even other members we've been helping, they all run into these same kinds of issues. So now we can say that that one's closed because it's done. Maybe it needs to be done closed pending MCN review. I'm just going to leave that one closed because should have been closed MCN review before we invoiced, right? So that the member care nerd could touch base with the member and let them know everything was okay, and then say, hey, we're glad everything worked out. We're going to send you out a quick a quick invoice. So that's how you would do it from a charge. So I started here in Ready for Billing. Had to go do a little research to find the charge because it wasn't properly entered into the SR, and then I had to go add that charge to QuickBooks as an expense, and then in that expense I tied it to this member, and then whenever I created the invoice, the expense item was there just to pull into the invoice. So It gets a little messy sometimes. You probably get better at it as you go. But the main thing is we've got to get all of those expenses into QuickBooks tied to the right members all the time. That's one of the big problems we're having is the expenses aren't getting recorded into QuickBooks. All right. Thanks.